This is Deb Helfrich, hashtag redheaded She-Hulk. Let me tell you something. It's a brand new world. And the pandemic has decided that we all need to figure out how to become improv performers. Think about it. Think about it clearly. The rules of every game have either changed completely or are about to just swirl. Everything is in a state of adaptation or maybe even evolution. Now, my job on Earth, yes indeed, has been to come to a place of being the wise feminine philosopher that humanity needs right now. Don't know why. We've allowed so much misery to exist in our world. But the easy answer is that those of us who had so much comfort not only stopped caring about the lack of clean water, the lack of adequate nutrition, even in countries like the US of hypocrisy, in the UK, with nothing but abundance, substantial amounts of people are going hungry. They're going homeless. And we go home full, look down on them. What the fuck is wrong with humanity? I'm fresh from day 15 of Eddie Izzard running on a treadmill an entire marathon's worth, 26.2 miles, 42.18 kilometers. She's running a marathon on a treadmill, live streamed to the internet. And then having blocked out 6 hours for that, and today she ran for 5.5 hours because apparently there's a lot of pit breaks needed. Her toes are like non-human. All blistery and swelling up, and this thing about running and losing these toenails. I mean, I'm not okay with that. Whew. Let's blame it on the shoes. Let's blame it on non-custom shoes. We're in this all talking about personalization, personalized medicine, give you a whole bunch of personalized pills. Why are our clothes so standardized for bodies that barely exist in the world? This shit off the rack, who does it fit? Come on. Humanity is of all shapes, colors, sizes, energy. And can we get some basics down? Do we have to gender clothing? Do we have to gender clothing? So this is an interesting thing. I was on the Twitter yesterday, philosophy Twitter. And the question was, there was seeking feedback on languages like Turkish, Chinese, Swahili that don't have gendered pronouns. And trying to get some, feedback from some actual native speakers was the question. And it was a fascinating discussion. And once we had a native Swahili speaker chime in and confirm that Swahili didn't have gender pronouns, I'm like, well, what about Zulu and Yoruba? I go do a quick Google search and have sent out the questions to some friends. Would know. The three major population-wise, as far as I know, languages, and I'm not an expert by any means, There are so many African languages, so many of which have been decimated when they were forced to adapt English as an official language, maybe French. Is Angola Portuguese maybe one? I mean, that can't be going well for them. What's Portugal done for the world lately? Because let me tell you what they did for us in the mid-1400s. If you're not familiar with Ibram X. Kendi's work, How to Be an Anti-Racist, I suggest you get that book, because, and there's a lovely excerpted article on LitHub. So Ibram X. Kendi, LitHub, anti-racism will get you there. Learn about how racism was created. It was Henry the Navigator of Portugal. Portugal was in a bind. Spain's keeping them from trading with the rest of Western Europe. So what they had to do? Well, got some ocean sailing ships and go down to Africa. Create havoc. Create what ultimately ended up being the transatlantic slave trade. One of the, you can't compare exterminations and genocides. But, I know the Holocaust was recently, but the impact of what happened when the concept of race categorized humans who were all the same by skin color. The legacy of that affects every single one of the 7.8 billion of us, except for the very, very, very rare tribes who are still living hunter-gatherer lives, disconnected from the internet. What colonialization and then industrialization and then digitization since the late 80s has done to our species is bring us to the tipping point of self-extincting. Eddie Izzard is basically saying 80 years. She's given us the rest of the century to get our heads out our asses. Philosophically, with many valid premises, I give us 30 years. I'm a 50-year-old woman, and in my life, I could be here for the end of our species. Certainly, the kids that we're supposed to be protecting, we owe them a civilization that works for all of us. We truly, truly do. Now, this is practicing for me to be a stand-up philosopher. I admire the comics. I admire the laughter. My role is light bulbs. I hope to give you a lot of ahas and some jokes. I got some jokey jokes. Turns out, I'm the little redheaded girl who's grown up to be able to give Sigmund Freud vagina envy. That's right. Here's the deal. Not even gender means what we think it does. None of us is strictly binary. Really, we aren't. Now, in the special framework of reproduction, we have separate equipment, and that has to happen. But in the vast domain of being good life partners, of having fun on a date, gender is really not entirely necessary. Can we not have dates with people of our same gender, even if we don't identify with wanting to have sex with them, and find that fulfilling and pleasurable? I mean, we do it, we just don't really see it. But I'm talking about a one-to-one. I'm talking about dinner talking about a long walk. I'm talking about Zooming in the parlance of our pandemic-informed world. Y'all, let me be clear about the pandemic. COVID-19 is not an asteroid. So many of y'all are approaching this as like this one-time occurrence that will end. It will not. We may learn how to deal with COVID-19, but you do realize right now, simmering under the media news cycle, there is a COVID-20. It may be harmless. It may not. Then there'll be a COVID-21 next year. By COVID-22, COVID-23, the success of COVID-19 will have somehow replicated and come right back at us. Adapted, perhaps even evolved into actually airborne. This is a philosopher sharing hypotheses. But look, COVID-19 is not airborne. The obsession with masks, singularly, is why the numbers keep raising. We are not learning to adapt to work at home conditions. We're not learning to adapt to this new reality, and we have to start spreading life-centric thinking. This is my custom phrase for the fact that our world is now built to accommodate stuff. Just stuff. 1 + 2, the math of stuff. It all adds up, and humans suffer. But there is another way for the numbers to compute. 1 + 1 = 3. The math of life. Now you can keep all your 1 + 1 = 2. You truly can. But 1 + 1 = 3 is a valid computation happening across the globe every single hour of every single day. And I can explain it to you in 9 words. Name this philosophical theory, the math of life. 1 woman + 1 man equals a 3rd baby. Reproduction. Something for nothing, and your chicks for free. It's a thought, an urge. Yeah, there's a whole process of 9 months, we get that. But at the crucial, fundamental level, making a brand new human, the most complex entity our universe has ever created, that's alive, that has sentience, that can change the world, make it better for all of the life on planet Earth. Because even though we are the pinnacle of evolution so far, we will die if we don't sort out how much harm our industry is doing to our bees. Every industry can go away, and you and I, who cares? I don't even care if you're addicted to your iPhone. Bye-bye, Mac. We'd figure it out. Bye-bye, bees? Bye-bye, apples. The nutrition kind. Far, 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 far more important. Now, we're coming up on 15 minutes. I'm going to try and come in under 20. Look, this is entirely improv. I had a little anxiety, or maybe a lot of anxiety, coming from Eddie Izzard, being at her professional best. How was I going to be able to do this? Here's the thing. I'm coming to this profession as an improver wanting to stay an improver. I'm hoping to get a role maybe every now and again. I do have my own movie. I do have a documentary. I can do. All of this is to say, this is how we all have got to learn to be. We've been labeled as sheep and taught to follow orders. But those orders only benefit the bank balances of inhumane entities, companies, corporations. It's not a fair exchange of your human life force for this entity's wealth. It's absurd in many ways. Now, it comes down to, I don't know what's better than capitalism. But as I had talked about, Henry the Navigator in Portugal, starting the slave trade, as we know, it ended into the transatlantic shipping of humans in barbarous conditions, killing them, maiming them, and then forcing them to work. Capitalism is only the dominant economic system because it stole labor from the very start. And now it's stealing labor to this very minute. Minimum wages and work that is nothing but an assembly line of doing the same thing over and over and over again. Consciousness, life force exists to create a better world for all life. And for us, the doers of these things, to have fun, to not see it as a job. Charity is a job. Charity is something, gotta always keep getting in more money. Well, shouldn't you just be solving the problem? When we set it up with these entities, then the entities, what are we gonna do with the cancer industry if we solve cancer? Well, we aren't gonna solve it. It's supposed to be the cancer industry that's trying to solve it. But the cancer industry, as we set up industries today, is mostly focused on its own perpetuity. I mean, they mean well and they think they're doing well, but so much of it, well, we got to keep this entity going so next year we can get even more donations. And then, it's just planning for this. But if we could fix cancer within the system, we'd already done it. There's a new model of human health, of which I'm one of the leading philosophers. I'm the founder of #WellbeingPhilosophy. And the philosophical hypothesis of bioelectricity, the first time you've heard it, because I'm the one whose brain thought it up, it points to a brand new, completely valid avenue for research. And it sends us back. Yes, the ancient Chinese medicine concepts, the Tai Chi, the meridians of acupuncture, the subcontinental Indian, the yogas, the Ayurveda, and the African. Yes, we've eradicated, exterminated so much African intelligence, it's beyond us. But humans managed to stay healthy, or else we wouldn't be here, when we all lived on the continent of Africa, before the migration everywhere else, which took us to different latitudes, which had our skin color have to adapt. We are all African ancestrally, and African well-being is about singing and dancing as a community repeatedly. It's West Side Storying. If something went on and there's a disagreement, you're out there, you're in the community get-togethers, and you're processing it. Like, that was my go, and you know it. Why did you deal with it? You sing about it. You use the voices. everything that you ever achieve in your life happens through the power of using your mouth. That's the end of this stand-up. Improv is your key to being able to adapt to the incredibly variable, changing dynamics of our world as we deal with the pandemic. And understanding that there's no going back to the stasis that existed. Because we were all harming each other, left, right, and center. We were ignoring the needs of identical humans who just live someplace else, not in our little circle of friends. We stopped seeing that they were going hungry. We stopped seeing that they had nowhere to live. We stopped seeing that they weren't internet enabled. So hence not able to actually ever make a living now that the whole world's locked inside trying to allow the pandemic to not take us out. It's all interconnected. And switching from stuff-based thinking to life-centric thinking, that is the future. You know, philosophies almost went extinct. We have been convinced to become human doings, but even worse, at this point, we're human consumings. We are born and bred to give all of our life force to these inhumane entities so that just a handful of people can become billionaires. Capitalism has been rotten since its core, forcing labor, denying the truth of the creativity that every human would embody as soon as you take them off the treadmill of 40 hours of cubicle captivity. Thank you for listening. Find out more about me, #redheaded-she-hawk, #wellbeing philosophy, as I'm working to create the Wellbeing Philosophy Institute to share these principles widely. Help me get the attention of Eddie Izzard, Dave Chappelle, Hannah Gadsby, the truth tellers of comedy, who use their own life to create change, to make humanity humane for the very first time. That's foundationally, we are the generation. It's up to us. And if we don't do it, there may not be a chance for those coming after us to save our species from self-extincting. But I know we can, and I'm here to do everything I possibly can to make humanity humane for the first time. Love you. Harmony, y'all.